Okay. Good morning to
Please.
good morning to all participants. A warm good morning on the behalf of Chaitram College of Nursing. I, Professor Shrija Vijayan, take the proud privilege to welcome you all in the today's online platform of national webinar, Professional Development, a nurse entrepreneurship, informatics and quality consultant, a way forward. I'm thankful to our principal, Dr. Aradhna Michael ma'am, for her guidance and constant support to organize this event from its inception. The world is full of opportunity. We as a nurse just need to think out of the box to explore more career prospectus in healthcare system. This event is organizing to sensitize our enthusiastic young nursing professional to wide area of professional development. Without taking much of your time, I would like to introduce our today's two eminent speaker. Today we have among us a very dynamic and humble quality leader, Ms. Anjana Manan ma'am, Senior Technical Advisor, Trex Healthcare Consultancy. I welcome you ma'am. And Ms. Lisha Shirley Babu, Health Consultant and Entrepreneur and one of our proud alumni. I welcome you Lisha. Before moving to our first session, a small announcement for our participant. You can ask your query at the end of the session, or you can put your query in your comment box. We'll answer your query at end of each session. Regarding the e-certificate that you are more curious about, we'll just want to tell you that all registered participants who are with us throughout the session will be provided with the participation certificate within 4 days. And those who are not able to join us in this Zoom platform, they can join us in a YouTube. The event also live on the Chaitram College of Nursing YouTube channel. So I just invite our today's first speaker, and I just want to give a brief introduction of our eminent speaker. Our today's first speaker is Anjana Manan ma'am. She's having a wide 16 years of experience. Ma'am is a senior NABH assessor, quality consultant. She's a teacher, mentor to students of hospital administration, quality and healthcare professional. Ma'am also has a credit to assisted in accreditation of government hospital as well as more than 25 allopathic hospital in and outside the Kerala. She is also supporting hospital for Ayush NABH accreditation. Ma'am is having a vast diversified experience in the field of quality healthcare. She's an eminent speaker and resource person in various events. And I would like to add that ma'am is very humble enough that she's accepted our invitation in a single extent. And we are fortunate to have you ma'am in this platform. So now the session is over to you ma'am.
Thank you so much. It was a great introduction beyond my expectation, and let me extend my heartfelt thanks for the management and faculties of Chaitram College and my dear student Lisha for giving me such a wonderful opportunity to be part of this excellent webinar. What much should I have for this? So I'm not taking much of my time, and let me go into today's highlighted topics, and I hope I meet all your expectations. I'm just sharing my screen. Hold on, please. I hope it's very clear. I hope all the participants and
yes,
the organizing moderators could see my screen and my audio is clear. Okay.
Yeah,
so we are today taking a small journey through quality. But I will take up this particular word quality. I would not like to speak about the word quality until I reach my final slides. Hope you'll understand when we take across this journey of why the relevance of quality comes towards the end. Okay, so as I think this slide remains very irrelevant because I need not explain anything. Such a wonderful description has been given by the organizer. So I'm again once again happy, and I'm Anjana Menon, and I'm here to be a technical support assistant for all the quality programs across the country. Before going into the section, let us all ignite the light or the lamp to those who have sacrificed their life during this pandemic and who've been our guiding light throughout. Let us keep them in our memory because that's very, very important when we sail across our days to come. Also, this prominent, this face is quite familiar to all of you than me, because she's a woman who taught us about nursing and the managerial skill. With keeping in her mind, she had one thing which she always used to mention in all her notes and all her literatures, that she never had the word excuse. She never had the word excuse, and we are going to take away the word excuse too, which will be very apt. When we take out the word excuse from our dictionary, things will happen automatically. That's what I believe. And let me, I happen to know from the morning good mornings that all the participants are here, either the students or the faculties or the employees of various reputed organizations. And let me give you a big salute to all of you for such a wonderful activity you've been doing during these pandemic days. And this is now where we realize situations, we understand or recognize the importance of healthcare as a quality services. And here we go into our topic. Our ultimate aim is to ensure a true patient-centric culture in the hospital. You know, you'll be even wondering, our topic is quality and you're speaking about culture. But believe me, quality is an end. Quality is just a start. There is no end and no start for the quality. But everything starts with the culture of the hospital. Now, how are we adopting a systemic approach? How would it make happen for us? All of your senior people, your head of institutions listening to me, children listening to me, everyone sail on their own ship, but we are ultimately focusing on one thing. What is it? Why? Always we say, the big question is, why hospital employees do not perform as desired? This question comes, even I think of myself, why am I not performing to the level which I expect or somebody else is expecting, my colleagues expecting, my teachers expecting, my senior faculty is expecting. This question of why is preventing us, in spite, as Madam Shrija gave the introduction, as we have a lot of opportunities, but we do not know where we are lying. We are not sure about where we have to go, or something is preventing us from going forward. All this question is why, because we feel, why should I come out? Why should I speak? Some of the other is right, I may be wrong. This feeling of not feeling confidence is pulling us from doing all the things appropriately. This question is big, and the answer is much more big. But it's confused. We are lost. We are confused. We are unclear. We are disoriented. We are bewildered. We don't know where we have to sail in. We are left unattended. We are unclear. We are having all pre-assumed definitions and assumptions in our mind that is preventing us from moving forward. Now, what is our mission? Nothing. Being nursing professional, what is our mission? Patient care with ultimate safety and with an additional touch of love. I would ensure that safety is there, quality is there, but both this without a touch of love, you are not going to reach anywhere. That is what I believe. So even I agree that all of you are doing this in a fantastic way wherever you are, with a touch of love. Now, let's move on to patient safety culture. What is that? We were speaking about in the earlier slides that we all have a beliefs. We all have set beliefs and values. We have our attitudes. We have our perceptions. We have our competencies. We think that safety culture is a product of individual and group beliefs. These are the patterns of behavior that determines the organization's commitment to quality and patient safety. I hope all of you agree with me. Now, again, quality culture. This is again a set of ideas, values, beliefs, and attitudes together promote behavioral norms. It's like, yeah, what I'm doing is right. Either you take a culture from the organization where you are learning to the organization where you're going to work, you take a culture with you. You take a culture where you try to imbibe the culture or put on the culture to the employees there, or you get synced into the culture wherever you're working. Either of this happens, or you're not trying to put something new there. To me, culture is something that we do things when nobody is monitoring us. Only when we do things appropriately, when nobody is monitoring us, then we said to have a culture of ours. When you do certain things, when somebody is watching us, or somebody is monitoring from far, or somebody is monitoring from near, or there is evaluation, or there is a requirement, when you have to do things, only then you do. There is an extrinsic factor only. You're working from morning, you're ending up in the evening, just because of the extrinsic factors and not the intrinsic factors or the responsibility which makes you to do, you will not enjoy the work, or you'll not set the quality culture in the organization. So wherever we are, we have to explore ourselves, trying to bring in a new culture in the organization. When one does the culture in that way, similarly the group does the culture, and definitely the organization culture gets uplifted, and this is the base for the quality activity in a hospital. Now, there are two things. Keeping on the previous slides in our mind, there are two structures which we have: the visible organizational culture and the invisible organizational culture. What is it? Yes, we all hail in the way where we are sticking into the invisible organizational culture. Our beliefs, our perceptions, our values, our own written rules, our own stories, our own shared assumptions, our traditions, our norms, and of course our feelings. We are going to go with that, but we actually, what do we say? We say the way we are going to do things is like vision, we set strategy, we set goals, we shared values, we set policies and procedures, we set structures. All these are streamlines to quality. But are we doing that? No. We are sticking into the invisible organizational culture, which is really preventing us to go through the real protocols of standardization of our systems, which leads to quality. So let us skip the slide in our mind, where we will realize important in hours to come, where we are going to discuss further on quality. Now, we all have these obstacles. We are bound with these obstacles. We are carrying, we are all employees carrying with all these obstacles, skipping in us again and again that I'm fit to do only this. I'm fit to do only this. I'm trying to do this. So what happens? It gets deposited as symptoms. Finally, this symptoms turns into fatigue, and you have your hardened beliefs. You're not trying to move out of that beliefs. Unless you try to move out of that beliefs, you will not overcome your kind of an attitude, you kind of a situation to come to a culture wherein you're thinking you are a person of importance, where you have a great role in quality, or you have got a responsibility in bringing up your organization or as an individual for the upliftment or ourselves and to the organization. Now keep all the slides into your mind wherein each of us related to the other. Now goes into nurses, the great people behind the show. It is always said that nurses are heart and soul of the hospital. They are the eyes and ears of the hospital. They are the backbone of the hospital. Well said. They are not patient care assistant. You are the patient care leaders. And anything or everything what we have to do, we have to set a standard. Because whatever we speak, we have to have a reference. In your college, you have a syllabus by which you're trying to educate yourself in 5 years, and you come out and try to implement whatever you have learned in the best possible way. If you're a faculty, you're trying to educate your students based upon the syllabus so that your students get educated in the best way. When you're coming to an organization, there again, we have a set standards which we are supposed to implement to check with the compliance level of this. Only then we have something to be measured. Now, standard of care measures the degree of excellence in nursing care and describes the competent level of nursing care. Again, coming to the next point of quality control from the patient safety culture and patient quality culture, and nurse is a quality person. The criterion is set a standard. Now, I think many of you would be a part of organization where they have gone through various accreditation programs, maybe NABH, NABL, or medical imaging services, nursing excellence, green OT, or various other standards of quality improvement. Whatever you are, or whatever which standards you are stuck into, or maybe from a hospital which is trying to get and implement any accreditation, the importance goes with that. How do you start a project? You often start a project with finding out the deficiencies. What is not in my hospital? You're trying to correct the deficiencies. Later, you're trying to train your staff and your supportive people and educate them, trying to set protocols, trying to implement the protocols, and trying to make them understand. And you review the process again and again. You do a self-assessment then and there. And finally, you tell that you have met at least to a 90% compliance of a standard. That is how you measure something, because you need some reference objective element for you to reach a destination. And that's why these standards are. These standards are very, very elaborate. You can take any standards you want to reach to a quality destination. And you as nurses have got dual role. It's like two sides of a of a coin, because you lie to a profession where you have to have it in the best quality way. And of course, you have the other side where you can act as a quality managers. How it comes together, I would say both are in you. You have two variants, you have a lot of areas wherein you can explore. And now, how do you develop a nursing standard? As you do any standard, as you go through the quality process, you have to set a standard where you identify expert team. As I said earlier, you are setting a set of standards, then training, educating, protocols, implementation, evaluating, and there you continuously discuss, devise, determine, try it out, put into practice, audit, review, and revised, right? Okay. So these techniques have been initially taken from the American Nursing Association, where they started up the QA model. Why we have to have a quality assurance, a quality system standard in healthcare organization, as any other industry does have. The roadmap. We all learn the subject in the best way. Yes, your faculties do teach you in the best way. You teach your subordinates in the best way. You teach your colleagues in the best way. We try to execute what we have learned, but with care and safety. That is our roadmap towards quality. Now, let me take a small example. Let me take you through a very small example where you will understand how good you're doing a thing. You have decided to go in for a quality program in your own department of nursing. What are you going to do? You've been doing, you've set everything, your protocol is ready, you've been trained, you've found out the non-compliances or what are the deficiencies in your department, you've set everything and you're ready to run the show. You are doing a procedure, a very simple procedure. You're doing it very appropriately. You're verifying your activity done. You're ensuring the effectiveness of whatever you've done. You're getting the feedback of your work done from the patients and your colleagues. You're self-evaluating your performance, and then you try to correct your mistakes. You try to correct your mistakes and you learn your teachings to share your teachings to your colleagues, telling them this were the issues which I faced while doing. And your colleagues must open the ears, have an attitude to receiving the errors or corrective actions which your colleague has taken you or taken you through. Now, improving the quality of your activity starts here. Now, you're very confident that whatever you have written, what you say has to be written, what you've written has to be practices. That is quality. Saying something, doing something, and practicing something is not quality. That does not tell you about standardization. Standardization is something which speaks that all of you do things in the most appropriated way as per the set standard, whatever standards may be. You can set your standard. It is not pulling someone else's standard and trying to put in your organization, which will never happen because we will not be able to achieve it. In our circumstances, in our country, we have to develop our standard, and that is where your NABH and other standards are there, which has been set to the atmosphere of our country or the environment and conditions of our healthcare organization in our country. Now you have done a procedure. Excellent. You're so happy that you have an accountability of your project. There is quality in this term. There is quality in this particular project which you try to do. It's a small procedure which you did to a patient, but you have come out with a quality satisfaction that I have done it in the best possible way. And all of you did. For example, I'll take you. Every day morning, we are going for a walk, right? We tell that we have walked this much kilometer every day. Next day, we tell our family members and friends, I did walk another kilometer. Now, the third day, you say, I took a walk another kilometer. This kilometer extends, but it's all verbal. I tell, all of them believe, or some won't believe. They'd say, oh, no, Anjana's been walking, but who knows how many distance did she walk? Where is the quantitative analysis? Next day, I take a watch, I take a stopwatch, or I get a calculator and tell, right, I walked 3 kilometers yesterday. Today I did this. Tomorrow I'm going to do. See, this is the data. I have a proof of what I did. I have to have a measurement. So any quality activities you did will be valid only when you have a check of what you've done through several tools. And one of the tool which I would like to discuss here is your nursing audit, because you're nursing people. I'm not going to take you in depth of the nursing audits because you people are much more into the sector than I am. So nursing audit is one tool, clinical audit is the other tool, medical record audit is the other tool, tracking of quality indicators is another tool. Simply saying, I will discuss the two parameters of nursing audit and quality indicators. What is a nursing audit? Again, it's a tool. It's very simple a tool, focusing on what set standards you have in the nursing sector. Now, comparing actual nursing with the standard nursing. Evaluation of nursing management. You have set a protocol. You have trained your nursing staff. You're making them aware that it is how important it is. You're monitoring their performance. You're doing it in the best possible way. You're whatever you've done, you've recorded in the best possible way, and then you're re-evaluating and implementing whatever you've done. So it is again what you say, what you've done. What you've done, you've documented. Again, standardization. So this tool is to evaluate how good you did the performance, how good you did a procedure. So when you do n number of procedures inside a department, there's a cluster of procedures you do inside a nursing department, which, as you are the backbone of the hospital, the most sophisticated team or most important team, you have n number of procedures than any others does. So you have to carry out this tool. Then why do we say nursing audit is so important? Because this is a measurement done simply, very, very easy, simple process. It's a value indicator, the tool of quality assurance program. Here starts quality assurance. Quality assurance and assurance. Quality is not a word. It is huge, it is wide, it is vast. I cannot just stop with 30 minutes of my time speaking about quality. It's just a starting. So I can tell you a tool of quality measurement, and this tool can be taken to those minds who have an attitude in thinking in a positive attitude way that I'm a person of quality. And when I have a quality within me, I'm here to execute the quality parameters in the best possible way wherever I am. If I am a nursing person, if I'm a nursing assistant, or if I'm a nursing student as an intern, or I'm a nursing professor, or if I'm a nursing HOD, I'm a nursing supervisor, or what maybe I will be a quality consultant of nursing. Whatever streams you are in, you have to keep the parameter that quality assurance is my agenda. I have to have quality within me. There starts the quality. Now, quality indicators, as I said, right? There are a lot of quality indicators in nursing section. All of you know we can measure so many things to know what exactly, where exactly. We have set everything in our department. We have done it in the beautiful way of doing things appropriately. But shouldn't we analyze how good we have done? So there are a lot, about hundreds and hundreds of indicators which we can implement in your hospital. Few of which is like monitoring the initial assessment by nurses, trying to do the adverse drug reactions, analyzing the ventricular associated pneumonia rate, trying to do the errors rates during shift handovers, trying to know the compliance level of hand hygiene. So goes the indicators. And these indicators are very, very important to know the graph. Are we going high into the level of expectation and trend in quality, or are we still hailing with all discussions, or the other side of the graph, which we were discussing about our set beliefs and thinkings that we are right. We are not trying to change ourselves, change to the quality and safety protocols. Now, again, these are few nursing quality indicators. I would just skip the slide. Nurses' role in QA. Yes, this is topic again linked with nurses as quality consultants and nurses as best people in taking out quality. Now, let me tell you, evaluating changes in standard policies, outcome, goal attainment. Is this a simple? This is what you're going to do as a quality person. Evaluating the changes in standards, policies, what is outcomes you're going to discuss, and you're attaining the goal. Planning the risk identification, and then your resource, you're mobilizing your resource. Again, you're setting the goal. Implement standards and monitoring and reporting it in a most appropriate way. This is what you're going to do. And your roles gets extended and extended and extended. Okay, let me tell you very simply why I tell that nursing team are the best people who can carry out quality department in your hospital. It's not just because I want to tell you all that you are all nurses and hence I'm telling you that you are the best people who can carry out nursing or the quality department. It's not like that. It's just because of my experience I'm speaking that why always stand on to saying you are the best people. You know, whenever you set standards, you cover right from the admission, that is from your front office or your front gate till to your discharge or your exit gate. This is a process which takes you through all the departments. Now, let me tell you, where are you not actually linked with? Nurses. Any other departments are not linked with. Nurses are linked with every department. Right from front office, aren't you linked? Right from the selection of a medical record. Yes, your role comes in front office. You get associated with front office in contacting your external ambulance services or external referral centers or whatever the case may be. You get associated with front office in contacting your external ambulance services or external referral centers.
Hello. Hello, dear participants. Just sorry that we have some technical issues from that Zoom platform itself. So just in a couple of minutes, we are reconnecting. मेरा फिर हैंग हो गया. उधर आ जाओ नीचे. उधर आप देख लीजिए नीचे. फिलिमोन एक मैसेज और डाल. अंजना मैम है क्या? उनको एक बार कॉल कर. Hello, dear participant. Just bear with us for a couple of minutes because it's a technical error from the Zoom platform itself. Ma'am is joining soon.
Hello, madam. Please enable me to share the screen. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We are doing.
Yeah.
Ma'am, we are done from our side. Please share your screen.
All right. All right. Hold on. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Are
Yes,
you
ma'am.
able to see me?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I think something, this is all expected.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am.
No worries. It happens.
I have a kind request that, ma'am, we have lost connectivity before 1 or 2 slides. Can you just go again in a short extent with previous 1 or 2 slides so that all will be with
Sure.
us?
Where do you want me? Could you tell me exactly where have you lost from nursing audit? Is it with the nursing audit? Lisha, can you hear me? I think again the network with the others is a problem. I can't hear. Madam Shrija, can you hear me? I think they are out of connectivity again. There's something again issue with the connectivity, I believe.
I think the students are able to hear you because they are responding.
Okay, so she wanted me to start with a few of the previous slides. So I just wanted to ensure whether she's online because she's the one who requested to go back to the previous slide. The faculty is at Chaitram. Could you just respond? There's something wrong with your network there. Lisha, could you message madam?
Yeah, I am doing that. I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Ma'am, could you enable your video? It seems it's just your audio.
One second, 1 second. Let me stop sharing and then get back. 1 second. Okay. Sorry, participants, for keeping you all waited because the organizers have missed your connections. It is all expected in a virtual meeting. It's not like on floor. So let's keep patiently waiting for all of them to join back.
Ma'am, they've asked you to continue with the slides because they are dealing with some other issues there. So,
Okay, fine. So, all right. All right. So I think I'll move on with where I stopped with nursing, importance of nursing audits as one of the tool for measurement of quality, and then going into the few of the quality indicators that we are supposed to do with the nursing department. And this is the slide which I skipped. And of course, the role of nurses in QA. Evaluating changes as discussed, planning risk identification, resource mobilization, and goal setting, as we did for any standard setting of NABH or nursing excellence or NABL or any other sorts of standards which we are planning to do in our hospital. Now, as I discussed, I told you, we were discussing about how are we as nurses related with all the departments. As like 5 fingers, we have got coordination with every department. I told you right from the gate till the exit, where you're handling with the front office, you're handling with laboratory, you're handling with radiology, you are in connection with the pharmacy, you are in tie with the biomedical equipment management, you are in responsibility with the infection control, you are in responsible with the maintenance, because maintenance and safety is another parameter. Maintenance, safety of patients, safety of healthcare organizations, safety of the environment, safety of the employees. Again, you are a part of it. Where is that there the area which is you are not in control? There is no area which you are not in control or you are not associated with. These standards of NABH, which I've just put as 10, that is the patient-centric standards and the managerial standards. And you can see, just like the 5 fingers of our hand, just like the 5 wheels of this bicycle, it has got, if one wheel goes out, is quite difficult to balance. So your role in all these departments is very, very significant, and you got to handle every department, which is rightly possible only for the nursing department. I can tell you with my little experience when I was working, when I get associated with my clients, I'm fortunate to work with many hospitals where I've supported, always supported with staff from the hospital side. And wherever I've got with no dejection to the non-clinical background people, I always say that I have been working with both the non-clinical quality managers and the clinical background, those from the clinical backgrounds. I've experienced that things would work out more effectively and efficiently if the quality managers are from the clinical background. It's nothing because they have a key role in everything. They at least know the terminologies of each of the departments. They are able to associate to each of the departments because they are doing it routinely as they're part of the nursing service. This is nothing separate they are doing for their quality management. They are already in line with all the departments in their day-to-day activities. So you people are all in one. You are all in one model. You can do anything, everything across hospital as quality managers. Nurses play a bigger role. You are the crowd. So if you cannot do, there are nobody else who can run as a quality manager. Integrated, you integrate with all the other functions. It's just like an ecosystem. It is a collaborated system wherein you can work together with the other departments very efficiently. These are the domain experts of healthcare quality. What does a quality consultant do? The topic of the day was, well, how can a nurse be a quality consultant? Why not? When you have set a structure in one of your procedure in your nursing department and you have excelled it, similarly, you have proceeded with n number of procedures in your nursing department, you have excelled in your department. Now your excellence is transmitted across the hospital as quality coordinator or quality managers or quality consultants within your hospital, wherein you are supposed to promote safety. You have to do evidence-based practices. You have to be medically and technically competent. You have to be person-centric people who coordinate with the others. You have to have a positive interpersonal behavior. You have to have a clinical leadership and governance. Are you not able to do it? If you're not able to do it, who else can do it? So your role is, again and again, I emphasize that your role is very important, and you can do and you can be a quality expert, whichever area are you in. If you're graduates, you're trying to finish your courses, or if you're faculties or if you're employees, if you cannot do a role in quality, none others can be a part. Now, I was speaking about all the quality cultures. I was speaking about the safety culture. I was speaking about nursing excellence or quality parameters in nursing. And I was speaking about you people as quality consultants and quality managers. Whatever may happen, all this can happen only if there is two things. One is if you bridge the gap between employee needs and employer expectation. This remains a big gap in any industry you go, not only healthcare, wherever you go, that employee needs and employer expectations are quite far. When we remember one of the slides in the early, we discussed that patient or the employee's expectations, or they don't know what they have to do, and neither management knows what is expected from them. There's a big gap. They set a standard of their self and we perform in the other way. No collaboration or correlation with this. Now the prime thing that we have to do is adapt a standard which is practicable. Do and tell and implement something which is practicable. Don't take a big burden and keep on yourself, which is impossible. Do the things gradually. Quality is just a journey. It is not a one-day transformation. So you try, the intermediate person, you as a quality manager, you as a quality consultant, you as a nursing expert, you can be a bridge to coordinate between the employee needs and employee expectation. Once this bridge is joined, it is easy for a smooth functioning of a quality department, getting away all the hindrances from all the departments to have a the show can run on and on. Now, remove the barriers, nature a positive patient culture, patient safety culture. Remove barriers that impact the ability of individuals from contributing to patient and safety. Just throw away the barriers. Don't keep your assumption that we are not able to do, they are able to do, comparing yourself with the other departments, comparing yourself with the other set standards. You focus on what you can do. You set a protocol and give your power of positivity to others so that they will be able to execute it the best possible way. Focus your strengths, jot down your strengths and focus on your strength, which will enable you to go ahead in your journey. Remove the barriers and follow the three absolutes. I would say for me, the three absolutes are: develop courage to criticize our own patient safety system. Just don't go away. When you find a fault, come up saying that this is a fault, and don't say as a complaint. You always have to come up saying a corrective action. Whenever there is a complaint or suggestion, complaint raised or a non-conformity seen anywhere, don't come up saying this is a fault. There is no fault unless there is a corrective action. Come up with a corrective action. Develop courage to criticize our own patient safety system. The authority for patient safety improvements is vested on employees. You are responsible for patient safety. You are responsible for all the safety cultures. You are responsible for the upliftment of the organization. Each one of us are responsible as a total for the growth of the organizational culture and safety activities. It is not pointing out the other and saying, I'm not a part of quality. Provide permission to, do not ask for permission when it comes to patient safety necessities. Don't wait for permissions for very minute things which you think should happen. Go on, provided it is beneficiary. Go on, provided it gives an add-on to the smile of face of our patients. Do it then and there and get a permission only when it is needed. Don't just absolutely wait for the others to give a green signal. Do it absolutely. Take a time to recheck what you're going to do is absolutely right and then move on. You know, this a Kabla Rose model is very important at this point. I know why. Now we are sailing through the COVID-19 days. We are into Corona. We are living with Corona. Initially, we had a shock. Later, we started saying, denying. We started denying, no, it cannot happen to India. This is not here. It's been done in China. How could this come to India? No way we can accept this. Then we started getting anger, blaming. Oh, these are the countries which brought out this virus and now we have been suffering. We are blaming each other. Later, we started self-blaming. No, just because we've been so reluctant. We were doing harm to our land. We've been harming our motherland. We started blaming and bargaining ourselves. Later, we went to a state of depression when there was a shutdown. We're totally confused how to live with, you were like totally out of the way. We've been enjoying to our extent, take it for granted everything and doing in a way. And we thought, if I could do it, now we are thinking, if I could move that day, if I could do that little humble things that I could have been doing last couple of months, we are stuck, we are not able to do. All are focusing on something else. Finally, we have accepted to live with COVID. There is nothing else that you can do. You're accepting it. You're accepting to go into a kind of herd immunity or going to live with COVID and going through minimalism of life and trying to find good in everything, trying to do the best possible way that you can do. And now trying to do the problem solving. You're running behind vaccines to find out a solution that can create peace of mind. We know what we need. Everything is done in a quality way, even a hand wash. When I used to go and teach my people there the importance of hand wash, they used to laugh at me. Hand wash, come on, gloving, putting mask. What is this, madam? This cannot happen. I'm in a busy schedule. Where do you expect me to use this? Aren't you all now using it? When it has become a part of our culture, when it is becoming a part of our day-to-day activities, we are accepting it. So acceptance is very important for the change of culture of an organization, which is nothing but a change to your quality. That we have no rights in talking about quality unless we change our culture and our attitude and our perseverance. This is a simple model, but very essential at this point of COVID. Key takeaway: impact of invisible patient quality and safety culture. No management commitment, no quality at all. Whatever you do, I'm sorry, no one can help you. No employee ownership, again, absolutely no quality. Realistic quality expectation, not in one department of nursing, or it is not on the head of the quality department. Quality. Everyone speaks about quality does this. What is that in quality does? Everyone has a responsibility in bringing up the quality. So realistic quality expectation should be across the organization. How to lead a patient safety culture? I told you now. We have to have a culture developed within ourselves. Remove barriers that hinder your culture. Throw it away. Don't focus on those unwanted negative things. Throw it away and go into a line where you think quality is essential. The importance of measuring and sustaining. Bringing up a quality is very easy as far as I tell you. Getting an accreditation is easy. Telling that we have achieved something is easy. Who's telling you? Who's giving you the acknowledgement that you have quality? Where you get an accreditation, put it in your office or put it in as a branding to your brochures that you've got quality? Absolutely no. Someone has to tell that this hospital has got quality, this staff has got quality, your employees has got quality, your equipment has got quality, your structure has got quality. This has to be commented by a third party, none other than your patients. When patients walk away, you're not going to give them a brochure and tell our hospital is quality. They'll say, come on, live it. Because quality should be visible, should be felt, so that they come back to you with a smile again, saying quality can be felt. And you team members, you nursing people are the backbone. Again, I say you, ears and nose or whatever, heart and soul, you are everything. When you can do such things in an absolute way, you can be the role model for any other departments who say quality is impossible. Quality is double possible, and getting into the road of quality is easy, but sustaining the quality process is more important. Just don't do it for the sake of completing your activity in the evening, or just to abide by the standards, or just to focus that we are going to get an accreditation. No, accreditation is important. Of course, it is important, but doing the things in the right way, right time throughout, that is quality. That is quality practices. So role of nurses in nursing department and also as a quality personnel within the organization is never a dual role. It is only a single role. I will again and again tell you that it is a single role, because I cannot segregate between nurses as quality consultant and nurses doing the nursing in a quality way. If you've done your department in a quality way, you are the leaders of quality. So you are not nursing assistants, you are nursing leaders, and you are quality leaders. Journey, and it is not a destination. You can see various smileys of different phases when you come across a hospital. You cannot keep everyone smiling every time, but at least you can pull someone, at least a group to your side, wherein the O becomes ha. That is, you get smile, you become happy. Once they sink into the culture and enjoy the transition, enjoy the quality, they will never get back. I'm sure they will never get back to where they were. They will realize the day, they will realize the hours that they have missed doing quality program. And I'm so very passionate and so proud to be a part of the quality healthcare system. And I think that all of us are the most esteemed people, and everyone are talking about us. It's not just because we are healthcare workers, because of the kind of work that all of us are doing for the society. And there are a lot of things that we are yet to do. And let this logo be, we care. Lead the light, let us be the light. Good people are like candles. They burn themselves up for giving to others light. So let us be light for the others. Let us be a light for the others. They come to us because, in a hospital, everyone comes just not because of curation. They feel that they're comfortable. They're taken care by the community. Do doctors be with them? They be with them only during prescription or when they come for the rounds. Who are with them? Nurses. Nurses are with them. They rely on you. They trust you. Whatever word you utter, they take it as the 100%. So what is getting wrong if you have a simple smile, a touch, a care and concern with a technical expertise, there is quality. So thanks to the angels of the earth, and all of you have given me a wonderful opportunity. Though we know this is a good example, we had a technical error in between. Overcoming that and proceeding is our challenge. So we will do the same thing in quality. Also, whatever errors or technical deficiencies or whatever hindrances are coming in our journey. Thank you so much to all the participants for the listening. And here is your time to have queries, or I think this is just the start of quality discussions, and way forward we have. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for the wonderful session. And in between, we are disconnected just because of some internet issues, but it's indeed a very wonderful and insightful presentation that what actually quality matters to other people and for a quality people like us. Ma'am, actually, there is as such no query till now we get, just only one query we'll just get, that the role of management in establishing a patient care culture. People want to know how we can able to establish a patient care culture when we are rendering our services in hospital.
Okay, that's what, again, this is very clear. I said, any standards you are setting, the management is the one who's starting up a program. So the management should be able to say why we are setting up the standard. What are we expecting? They should have a very descriptive flow chart as what are we going to do, and what are the responsibilities of each of the departments in executing, and delegating the job description exactly to them, and having a platform of where they can share their views and ideas. When the management remains one side and the employees remain other side without sharing of the issues, positive, negatives, there is a gap always. Even a representative from one department should have a regular meetings, regular discussions with the management, and management should have a time to look in. Management should not be the people sitting in their chambers. Management should come down to the areas and understand the problems. Only if a manager comes and takes a round throughout the hospital, he will really understand what are the problems. Only then he will be able to he will be also an instrument in getting things done. Otherwise, he will just think that this is happening. When it is not communicated, it is either way. Either the employees should communicate to the management, and management also should come down to the employees to know about what is happening. What is their problem? What are the positive? What are the recommendations? You need not take everything that has been told by the employees. At least the 5 points from the employees are going to be really useful. So this interrelation will definitely build up a quality culture. Then you have a standard, you have expectations, both are matching up, and you are developing a standard, you are following whichever is possible. I underline, because for every hospital you cannot go for a JCI accreditation just because you need an accreditation, because it has got a lot of parameters to done. So gradually start with the small ISO, then go with an NABH, then go with a JCI. It is how you climb the ladder. Same way, one fine day you cannot go for a quality. So understand it, and then once you establish a quality culture, absolutely you will be in the stream. Nothing can prevent you all from doing. So have a rapport with top management, and top management expectations to be delivered down the line, and vice versa. This is the only way to establish a patient culture across the organization.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. And the takeaway message that I have taken, that if you have to do a quality kind of thing when people are not monitoring us or people are not watching us, still we are giving our best to our patient, our student. If we are in a educational sector, that matters a lot, and that is quality. Thank you so much, ma'am, for the informative session.
Thank you so much.
Indeed, ma'am, it's our pleasure that you are with us. Now, without taking much of the time, I just moving to our next speaker. Our next eminent speaker is Ms. Lisha Shirley Babu, healthcare management professional with 9 years of experience. She is currently working as a healthcare consultant who help healthcare organization with planning, designing, and lean management. Prior to this, she was working with Aster DM Healthcare on their Kochi and Wayanad project as a project manager. She's a nurse and she's a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt holder. Also, she did the Masters in Hospital Administration, and we are proud that she's our alumni. The floor is all yours, Lisha.
Thank you. Just a second, I'll start sharing my screen first. So is it visible now?
Yes, Lisha, it's visible.
Yeah. So yeah, good morning, everybody. And it's indeed a great pleasure to come back to your college, though virtually. And thank you, Aradhana ma'am, Shrija ma'am, and all my teachers out there who've taught me whatever I've learned and like are responsible for whatever I am today. So today I will be dealing with, my topic says borderless nurses. Now as nurses, we don't set our limits. You are limited by only your imagination. Always remember that. You can do anything. You want to run a hospital, you can run a hospital. You want to become a quality consultant, become a quality consultant. You want to become help the IT sector in developing a hospital information system, do that. You want to become an anesthetist, you can do that. So typically there's nothing stopping you. Now, this is what I'll be dealing with in the few slides that I as I go by. I'll take you through what is the future of healthcare first. We all know there are hospitals, the physical hospitals that we see right now. And what is the future of healthcare like? What is artificial intelligence done to healthcare? How can that interfere you and me, nurses and doctors? How will artificial intelligence take over nurses and doctors? And my last point will be, how are nurses ideal candidates to run a hospital? Am I audible?
Yes, Lisha, you are audible.
Okay. So these are few faces who have been my mentors and who are currently running hospitals. So the first phase, I'm sure Anjana ma'am would be familiar with all of them. This is the first phase is Gracie Matai. She is a nurse. Now she started off as a nurse. She was a quality consultant. She's a big name. She's a big name in the healthcare quality industry. And now she is the chief executive officer of a 500-bedded hospital in Calicut. So please, there is nothing stopping you. You shouldn't. I know there are undergraduates hearing me out. There are postgraduate MSc students hearing me out. I can see a lot of teachers. There's nothing stopping you. There's nothing stopping you. The second phase is Dr. Santi Sarjan, another nurse. another nurse, she's an MSc nurse who later did her informatics, health informatics, and now she's the chief operating officer of Apollo Hospitals, Chennai. Now that is nurses taking over the healthcare field. Third phase, Captain Ajita. She is a army veteran, okay? She's a nurse. Again, she is now the chief operating officer of Avitas Hospital, NMC Healthcare Kerala. They all started off as a nurse. So there's nothing stopping you. That's what I'm trying to say. You could be next. But then for that, you have to prepare yourself. The lot of changes that will come across the way. So I hope that you are next. So now our discussion points, as I said, would be healthcare and artificial intelligence. How is artificial intelligence taking over healthcare? Maybe in the next few years, there would be no doctors and nurses around. There'll be robots moving around who would be telling, who would be taking patient care. You don't know. So that would be the first point. Next point of discussion would be, why are nurses ideal candidates to run hospitals? Third thing that we would be dealing is nurse innovations and entrepreneurship. So can you invent something? Can you be a part of a team that is inventing something? Last point would be nurse informatics and other prospects. What after nursing? You can run a hospital. You can either help the innovation sector. You can become a nurse anesthetist. You can become a legal nurse consultant. So I'll just briefly go through few options that nurses have. Now, how is the healthcare landscape of India currently looking at? Okay, so India has 43% lesser nurse population ratio than what our WHO recommends. So WHO says that you should have 3 nurses for 1,000 people. And where are we? We are at 1.7. Now, on your right side, you can see how other countries are doing. China has 2.3 nurses per 1,000 population. Italy is 5.8, Republic of Korea is 6.9, USA is at 8.5, France is at 9.7, Germany is at 13.2. Now, one thing you could say is all the nurses are Indian nurses who are going abroad. They're going to Italy, US, Germany. So there is a whole lot of migration that is happening, which has actually affected our nurse population ratio. Whereas we produce nurses, India is like the industry where nurses are produced and they go and work outside. So there is a huge opportunity in healthcare. Healthcare by 2022 will be an $8 trillion industry. That is, $8 trillion will be pumped into India for setting up hospitals. So this is going to be a huge industry. So you and me have prospects. So the World Bank says that by 2030, there will be a shortage of 82 million workers, and India will need 2 million doctors and 6 million nurses. So by 2030, we will be short of nurses as well as doctors. Now, as I said, healthcare and artificial intelligence. So if you remember Anjana ma'am's, I just go back to Anjana ma'am's previous presentation. She said a nurse, she has to be a patient care leader. She has to have a safety culture. And third is the addition of love, that touch of love. Imagine right now, why are we all scared of robots? Because they don't have a touch of love. Now, AI has gone into a space where even that touch of love is there. So you have robots who can actually do patient care activities, okay, who actually work safely better than human beings and who actually have a touch of love. So AI has gone into that space. So please beware, your and my job might be endangered at this point. So I'll just take you briefly through few of the, artificial intelligence out there. So first thing, if you could see, is Watson Health. So Watson Health it's a software from IBM. IBM is an IT giant. And what Watson Health does is, it is all the data. So you are a patient and you ask you tell Watson Health that I have been having fever since these days. And I have nausea, I have vomiting, and Watson Health has your data right from the time you were born. It has your DNA, it has everything. Now Watson Health will come up with an accurate diagnosis. Imagine there is no doctor's role, okay? And the error margin is very, very minimal error margin. So Watson Health will give you an accurate diagnosis. So you don't need doctors anymore. Come to Enlytic. Now, Enlytic is smart radiologist. You will not read a radiologist anymore. Computer will read the scans, and computer will give you a diagnosis. So that's where we are heading it. Next is Freenome. Now, what Freenome does basically is, Freenome is something like a glucometer. Okay, you put you prick your finger, like give it a drop of blood, and imagine it would tell you whether you are at risk of developing cancer or not. So they use some biomarkers, and so that is where the healthcare space is into now. Another software is Boy. Boy is another simple software which says, it actually decreases your chances of going and getting hospitalized. Now, Boy is something like, I have COVID symptoms. I say that, I have severe fever for last 3 to 4 days. I have severe headache. I have sore throat. And Boy will give you an instant diagnosis. Now, difference between Watson Health and Boy is, Watson Health has a lot of data. It would have your data from your childhood, but Boy is something that is using data that what you are providing it. Next is Proskia. Proskia is again a pathology management. Now imagine, so you will no longer need a pathologist in your hospital. Okay, once a sample is sent to the lab, now this software will, find out, it will see the reports and it will give you a diagnosis. Last thing is Google DeepMind. So this DeepMind is very interesting. DeepMind was founded, it's a company based out of London, and it was founded in 2010. And in 2014, Google acquired it. Now, if you look at the rest of these things, rest of the softwares, you have to actually teach the robot, okay, or the artificial intelligence thing to come up with an answer. You have to actually teach them. So there are a lot of IT experts sitting behind there and, providing data and, helping them teach. Now, Google DeepMind is very different. This thing, the robot learns everything itself. Now that is dangerous. That is dangerous when robot learns everything itself. So there is literally zero human intervention needed. Now, remember, that is where are we going to? So do you think, now I spoke about the big things and all. Do you think as nurses, our jobs are safe? No. So there is a robot that is Trina, Telerobotic Intelligent Nursing Assistant. Now she will do your job. Okay, and she will do your job. Now, in times of COVID, it's very, you have to deal with contaminated samples, you have to change sheets, all those things. Imagine all those things being done by robot. Now, Trina is a smart robot. It addresses healthcare workers who are at high risk for infection due to routine interaction with patients, handling contaminated materials, and challenges associated with safely removing protective gear. Now, this is right now, whatever limited thing they have done, it's just a small portion, okay? They say Trina is it performs 60% of a nursing task and is 20 times slower than a nurse right now, right? And they are working on it. So one of the patients was asked, would you prefer a nurse or a human nurse or a robot? Now what the statement was, if I'm dying, I find it hard to believe I would choose a robot. As a human being says, a patient says that they would choose a robot because human being say, now what happens, I am a patient in a hospital and I say that I want you to help me order something from the canteen. Okay. Now as a human, you're a nurse and you will have umpteen number of things to do. Okay. You will say, okay, I'll do that. Okay. I'll come back in some time. I have already done that, but that's not the case with a robot. Now, what robot just, robot knows that you say they have to do it. So robot will, they understand human behavior and they will actually do what is said. So, so the study says that human beings would prefer robots compared to nurses. Now that's where we are going at. Now I said, if there is no, moving back to, as I said, Anjana ma'am's slide, what people need is, they need patient care. When they come to hospital, they expect patient care, they expect safety, and they expect a touch of love. Now Trina couldn't do that. So the next level is Meet Sophia. Now Sophia is she has got 50 expressions. Imagine she's a robot, she's a Saudi citizen. This is the first robot to be given a Saudi citizenship. Okay. And now imagine, so everything has been everything you said that nurses, human beings are wanted because they have the emotional capability. Now here's a robot that has an emotional capability. So that's what I'm getting at. So your and my job might be in danger. So that's the healthcare space. So I have briefly spoken about what opportunities you have. Now I'll say that, like, I'll go to why should nurses run a hospital. Okay, you are in control everywhere, right from the moment a patient enters the OP, sees a doctor, gets admitted, gets a procedure done, gets discharged, gets to the whatever, gets to the OT. There are various processes in between OT, ICU, and then, coming to the post-operative ward, then again the step down and the patient gets discharged. You are there everywhere. Now, as nurses, what is your role in running the hospital? Okay. First thing, you can always reduce the length of stay. Now, the more an average patient should only stay for 4 days in a hospital, not more than that, because when they stay more than that, they are at the risk of getting hospital acquired infection. First thing. Second, the cost burden on a patient. Imagine, like, how the bill comes up when the stay is extended. So as nurses, you imagine a patient has been scheduled for surgery. His initial, you said that initially while he or she was getting admitted, you said that you will stay in this hospital for just 4 days for a procedure. Okay. Now, one day before the procedure, you're supposed to send, the doctor note said that you are supposed to send a preoperative blood test or something, and you forgot. Now, next day, that surgery won't happen. That would get rescheduled. That means another day is added. The patient is on the risk of getting another infection, which he or she was not aware about. You are increasing the cost burden. Okay. So remember, you are in charge. Now, this whole thing is, doctors are nowhere. Doctors are nowhere. Your patient, your responsibility, your ward, your responsibility. So you have a very important role to play in reducing the length of stay of a patient. Okay. Now, higher length of stay means higher chances of mortality and morbidity. Okay. And if you have more beds, you will get more new patients. And that is basically more revenue. Second thing, you have a major role to play in reducing waiting times in a hospital. Now, what are the waiting times in a hospital? If you go to the figure here, you will see, a typical patient, what a patient experiences when he or she is going to see a doctor. Now, this patient, it takes 15 to 30 minutes for her to get her queue number. That is her, all the forms she or he fills the forms. She or he gets that admission, the OP card and everything. That takes 15 minutes. Again, you will have the nurse. Next step is the nurse's assessment. Okay, you'll take the vitals, and that's they have to wait for another 15 minutes. Typically, what we've seen is waiting time for the doctor is 1 to 3 hours. Okay, 1 to 3 hours, and then they'll be sent to the pharmacy or the lab. Okay, so a typical person, when people are scared to come to hospitals, why? Because everybody's working now. And time is very valuable. Now, I have to consult a doctor, and it takes me 2 to 5 hours to consult a doctor. That is disastrous. So who can play a very important role here is nurses. You're watching everything. Imagine you're watching trust me, I've been there. I've been in the OPD settings. I've been in the IP as well. So I know what I have seen. Okay, you are there, you are watching everything. You feel that, that patient has been waiting for long to see a doctor, call the doctor. And studies have, they've shown that better patient experiences mean the patient, if patient is happy, that means the chances of him or her getting healthy is high. And the financial performance of the hospital is also very, very important in this. Okay, so you have a role in reducing waiting time. Next thing is improving operation theater utilization. Now, a typical OT hours, OT starts at 8 o'clock, ends at 4:30, that is 8.5 hours. Okay, 1 hour lunch break, that is 7 hours. So typical OT would operate for 7 hours. Operation theater utilization is very important because 50 to 60% of the hospital's revenue comes from operation theater. So how do you utilize the OT? How do you have surgeries? Say it is very important that you start your first surgery on time. If your OT time is 8 a.m. to 4:30. 8 a.m. dot is not the time when you call the patient from the ward. 8 a.m. is the time when the patient should, get the incision or the anesthesia should be started. That's so very, please be very particular about, all these time in, time out and all. So like I said, so how you utilize your OT, it impacts on the financial performance of a hospital. And another thing, what we've noticed is, you will have by evening, like every hospital by evening, they get a clear idea of how many surgeries are there scheduled for tomorrow. Okay. And the next day, when you start calling the patient, you realize that, oh, okay, this patient has not got admitted. This patient has fever. Okay. Why couldn't you do on the previous day? No, see, imagine them. I'm talking about nurse's role. So nurse knows, say an operation theater knows, a nurse, okay, evening duty, they get their this schedule. They know that, next day they have surgeries. They could actually give a call. Has the patient got admitted? Has the pre-op markers been sent? Has the pre-op the anesthetist PAC been done? So these are very important things. The point I am making here is nurses are in charge of everything. That's a prime point I'm trying to make. Now, see, there's no surgeon involved in the OT. There are no surgeons in the evening OT sitting there. Okay. Surgeons come to the OT in the evening when you have an emergency, and they come you call them, they come for the surgery. That's all. But nurses are there 24 hours. So ideally, OT utilization should be at 85%. You should utilize 85% if you have 8 hours a day of OT, at least 6.5, 7 hours should be utilized properly. And that rest of the 1 hour, what I'm talking, it's not for lunch break. It is for your break between surgeries. Now, first surgery is finished, second patient has to come in. What happens in between? There's a cleaning of OT. There are, you have to put the sets for the next surgery and everything. You should be prepared. You should minimize that, gap between two surgeries, and always make it a point that, your utilization for OT is at 85%. There's a typical theater cycle. What happens is patient comes in, anesthesia is given, positioning, preparation, surgical procedure is done, patient peels out. Now, the point I wanted to make here is, please be, respect time in the OT. If your surgery says it's a 9 a.m. surgery, 9 a.m. patient should be wheeled in. Patient shouldn't be in the, like in the corridor waiting for, somebody to pick up. That's not the thing. Respect time. And nurses can do that. Next thing is avoid medical errors. So approximately 200,000 of this is Indians haven't done a study on medical errors yet, okay, as to what is the loss of money that patient has, okay. Now it's a US study. So US said that, approximately 200,000 Americans die from preventable medical errors. Due to medical errors that happened in the hospital, 200,000 Americans have died, and hospitals have been sued for $19.5 billion. Imagine the amount of money. Leave the money, okay? It's medical error, it's basically adhering to a standard like Anjana ma'am mentioned, okay? So before giving a medicine, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to cross-check the medicine. I'm supposed to, look if it's a look-alike, sound-alike. So there are standards that have been mentioned. You have to adhere to those standards to avoid medical errors. So according to some statistics, medical errors continue to cause hundreds and thousands of preventable deaths and injuries each year in the United States. And every year there are out of 1,000 hospitalizations, and insurance companies, basically US works on insurance. So basically it's a risk for the insurance companies. And very important thing is, hospital acquired conditions are declined by insurance. You must always understand, if your patient came for a procedure, patient came for laparotomy, okay, imagine in your hospital itself, patient came for laparotomy, he was supposed to stay there for get admitted, next day was the surgery, and was supposed to get discharged in next 2 days, 3 days, okay. If the stay gets extended because the patient had an infection, okay, then that will be declined by the insurance. Insurance will not pay for the extra stay. So basically, who's to pay? The patient has to pay. The patient might not be prepared for that, because patient doesn't know, coming to your hospital might have due to our negligence, medical error or a surgical error that we had, or the the whatever condition, the patient might not be prepared for dealing with the cost implications of that. Now, so that is why so my point here was nurses should run hospitals. Now, I showed you 4 slides wherein this nurses were not a part of. Nurses were there everywhere. Nurses were there, I mean, right from the OP, right till the discharge point, nurses were there. So there's no one better. There's no one better than running the hospitals than nurses. So next idea is, next thing I wanted to discuss is entrepreneurship. Now, entrepreneurship is basically you set up a business and you take financial risks. So you won't get paid on, like you have a job right now. You'll get paid every month. Your EMIs will be, they are all settled. You have all this, like how to plan your finances. But while you start a business, you are taking financial risk because you don't know whether market will accept this, whether you will get money out of this. You don't know anything. It's all blank. You can only plan. Okay, you can only plan and be prepared for this. Now, how does this entrepreneurship thing start? So first there is an idea. Now, please understand entrepreneurship and all, everything, these things, they cannot be done alone. You always need a team. You always need a team. You might be good with your clinical expertise. Okay. But you want to do, you have great ideas to start an AI company. You have ideas, but you only have the clinical expertise. So you need an IT guy next to you to help you with that. Okay. So that's what it's a team effort. So how does entrepreneurship happen is you have an idea. Okay. So you say that, okay, I am going to do this. I'm going to manufacture a pen. I'm going to manufacture a pen that can detect carpal tunnel syndrome. Good idea. Okay. Now you will have a decision. You will talk to your friends. You will talk to experts. You will talk to, now you are not the right, now imagine me as a nurse, I'm not the right person to say that, this is a vague idea, but I cannot say that, okay, is this happening or not? Now I need a doctor. Okay. I need somebody's help to proper clinical expert help me with this. Okay. So I take decision based on that. I'll have my colleagues come in. Okay. Next thing is proof. We will make a prototype of that. We'll make such a pen. One pen. We'll make one pen that's known as a prototyping. Okay. And you will actually, you will do research. You will give it to your friends and say that, is it actually help monitoring carpal tunnel? Okay. Is it? So that's how the proof stage goes. Next is growth. So you launch it into market. You found that, you did a study for 1 year. You said that this pen XYZ is helping you detect early, it picks up early carpal tunnel syndrome. So now it's great. So you will launch it into the market. You will mass manufacture, launch it in the market, and then there's a long-term plan. Now it all sounds good. So it all sounds good. Okay. So thing is, 2 things that are very important is be ready to take financial risks when you are setting up your own business. Second, you need a good team. You need experts. You might not know how to advertise this product. You might be the clinical brain behind this product, XYZ pen. I know I'm the clinical brain, but then I don't know how to market this product. So you need a good marketing. Okay. You need a good social media expert to, reach out to the young population. This pen should be you have a goal that this pen should be used by everyone worldwide. So then so you need a team of experts. Now, good thing is, in several universities, which I'm talking about, not in India, several universities abroad, there are universities who are actually promoting entrepreneurship. They give funds. You have an idea, talk to them. I'm talking about proper nursing colleges. Now, everybody has a smartphone. Okay, please read. My only advice is, please read. There is, I think back in our days, we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have Google. We only had to go to the library and, search, and whatever the library had was that was our world. But right now, nothing is stopping you. Okay. You have Google just Google, what are the funds for nurses to to have a startup. Now, there are universities that are helping you design prototyping, means they are helping you manufacture that single pen first. They're funding you for that. They're giving you money. If your idea is excellent, idea gets selected, then they are funding you for that. And they are licensing. Licensing means patenting. Nobody will be able to do that then. That means if Flisha manufactures an XYZ pen that is patented, that technology is patented to me, and nobody else can take that. And you have an intellectual property right to that as well. Now, nurse innovations. Now, innovation means you come up with something new. Again, it's a team sport. Okay, I'll be just mentioning few innovations that nurses did. Now, patient care assistant tracking. Okay, now this thing is very interesting because it happened in my hospital. So in my hospital, what was happening was nurses were very fine. Like once a patient get discharged, you have to actually take the patient on a wheelchair to the discharge. I mean to the entrance. Now who takes that? You have a patient care assistant. Okay, you have assistants for that. Now nurses were not able to. Now what nurses do? They call the bhaiya, please come. Okay, this patient has to be taken to XYZ like area. This patient has to be taken to the OT. So there are people around. But nurses were not able to track them. Nurses, the common complaint of nurses in our hospital was, we call and they don't come. They said they're coming, but then they never turn up. Now what, and this thing was, suggested by a nurse itself. She said, like Uber. Okay, now Uber, I know everybody would have used Uber. Now what Uber does, Uber, if you open the app Uber will show how many cabs are nearby. Okay, I'm standing here, I'm in like wherever I am, Uber will show you how many cabs are nearby. She said, what if hospital can come up with an app and every assistant, nursing assistant or patient care assistant is using that. And, I from the general ward, I see that I am in the general ward. I want this patient transferred from ward to ICU. I open the app, I see how many patient care assistants are nearby. I raise a request. And now they cannot say, that I am coming, and then not turn up, because nurse has seen where this guy or girl is. Okay, they have to actually come and pick up. So this is a patient care assistant tracking device. This is called Uber for hospitals. This is actually called Uber for hospitals. So next thing, and this was brought up by a nurse. Okay. Next thing is Neonure. Now what is Neonure? Neonure is, once a baby is born premature, that is before 9 months, okay, can you detect the brain maturity of the child? Now this again was bought by a nurse. A nurse actually found that, so this is a device which will show you exactly what is the brain maturity of the premature baby. So next thing is Difobot. Difobot is basically a diabetic food management telehealth. So diabetic patients in their extreme conditions, what they have diabetic foot and all the diabetic ulcers and all that. So what this thing does is, it actually helps you connect with the doctor, and helps in preventing complications of diabetic food. Now remember, all these things were brought in by nurses, all these things. Okay, the last thing is, I like the last thing, it's heart failure monitoring socks. Now this nurse, what she did is, she understood that every person who goes into heart failure, they have a symptom on there. They'll have swelling of their legs, and she had been noticing this. Okay, and she didn't want her patients to die at home and all. So what this socks does is, once this socks automatically detects swelling, activity, and weight. As the swelling increases, what will happen is, it will send a notification to their healthcare provider, that their symptoms are aggravating and they need help. So that's very smart. That's very smart. So you should be, to become an entrepreneur, to become to start off something, you will have to look around for opportunities. There are opportunities around you. Now, when I'm talking about innovations, I'm not talking only about tech. Simple thing like, so another thing, what happened in a hospital was, now every hospital is short of nurses, as you know. Okay, so in the deluxe ward, where all the premium patients stay, these patients complain that whenever they go to the nurse's counter, there is nobody at the counter. Okay, there is nobody at the counter. So they said that, and when we asked nurses, okay, what happened? Why are you not at the counter? They said that they are at the patient's bedside. Okay, now that's a problem. That's the only problem. And what nurses did is, from next time, they would leave a card on the counter that nursing care is in progress at room number 0.001. In case of emergency, please call this number. Isn't it very simple? So there's no tech. it's simple, and that's okay for the patient. Okay, patient understood, the bystander understood that no problem is solved. There are opportunities around you that you must look out for. That's what I'm talking about. Now I talk about nurses running the hospitals, nurses as entrepreneurs, innovators. Now, what are the other careers that you have in nursing? Nurse informatics. Okay, nurse informatics is so IT guy, an information, a computer engineer. He or she wants to develop a hospital information system. They don't know how to do it. You have to tell them. Some clinical expert has to sit with them and tell them. Now, how does you draw a blood sample from a patient and you send it you tell the patient care assistant to take it to the lab. The lab, analyzes it. It gives the result. The result is back on the computer. You know this. The IT guy doesn't know it. IT guy doesn't know it. So somebody has to tell them. So those are nurses who are good in data, who are good with playing with data, who sit with them and help them understand everything. Okay, so it's a huge there's a huge career prospect. Okay, there are health informatics courses. You must all google and find out this. Next is healthcare consultant. So healthcare consultant, Anjana ma'am, like all of us are healthcare consultants. We help hospitals. That's all. Okay, you can help. What's stopping you from becoming a healthcare consultant? I mean, I'm not talking about first years, second. At least from third year, you know how the hospital runs. You can tell. If somebody asks you, how do you start a hospital? Don't you know how to start a hospital? You will say that you need an OP area. Okay, after the OP area, what all are at the ground floor? What is in the lower ground floor? Where is the CSSD is not on the top. CSSD is at the underground. Okay, where is radiology? Radiology is never on the fourth floor. It's in the underground. So you know everything. Please keep your eyes and ears open and observe everything. Next is legal nurse consultant. So every hospital will have medical legal issues. Okay, so so right now, India, what's happening is there are lawyers who become medical legal consultants. Whereas abroad, you have legal nurse consultants. Trust me, these are all courses. These are all courses. I know everybody aspires to go abroad. Okay, and these are courses that you can take there. See, at least in the Western countries, and you can grow. Next is nurse coders. Now, this is a huge thing. Everybody studied the DSM classification and the disease classification. Everybody knows that. Now, in hospitals, other than, like in the West and the Gulf areas, what happens is it's all run on insurance, okay? The patient doesn't pay anything from their pocket. It's all run on insurance. So what happens there is, say XYZ patient is admitted with dengue. Now, when you send this to the insurance company, you cannot write that, XYZ patient was suffering from dengue. You have to actually mention the DSM classification so you have to be thorough. So these nurses are thorough with coding. That is what a nurse coder does. Okay. And this is a huge career. Right now, the West has actually outsourced it to India. So India, basically, all the nurse coders sit and they do it for people abroad, actually. The US doesn't hire, there are no nurse coders in the US. They have actually outsourced it to India. Next is certified registered nurse anesthetist. You are a nurse, you want to administer anesthesia. Fine, this is a course, certified registered nurse anesthetist, CRNA. So imagine the amount of possibilities you have, okay? You are only limited by your imaginations, as I would say. Now, to be a successful leader, entrepreneur, or anything other than bedside or anything. Even I would say teaching is a very challenging job. It's a very challenging job. So to do all that, you will have to be open to change. Okay. Now, as he said that, like to become an entrepreneur is not easy. You will have to take financial risks. So be ready for that. Be open for a change. You have to embrace possibility. You see, there's a possibility for a change, do that. Get out of your comfort zones. Okay. So you will have to maybe move across the country to study that. You have to go to another country to get that skill, do that. You have to learn how organizations work and how decisions are made. So basically, every hospital, every NABH, JC accredited hospital will have various committees. And I am sure nurses are part of everything. You talk about mortality, morbidity committee, a lot of committees, okay? And nurses are part of everything. Sitting there, you should understand how they organize. So there's a nurse representation, there is a CEO, CXO, there's a quality representation, there are doctors. Learn from them, and get to learn what a team looks like. Relationships matter. So when I say relationships matter, as I said that, in like, if you're a bedside nurse, you can maybe work alone, but then if you have to go and become a leader, you have to, have good relationships. You have to have colleagues that you can go and ask questions, queries and all. So keep everyone close, keep everyone close. Next thing is think better and think different and make better choice. So it's basically be open to change. Now, how can you think different? First thing is technical skills. Now, whatever you are learning in your 4 years is technical and behavioral skills. You are learning how to put an IV, you are learning how to put a central line. It's all technical skills. Learn that. Learn that. It will help you. Okay. Next is behavioral skills. You are, engaging with people in your colleague, your department, your seniors, your juniors, your faculty. These are behavioral skills. Get conceptual clarity. When I say conceptual clarity, you should now you learned central line. You should know why a central line is put. What does it do? So understand the concepts well. Okay, then only you'll be able to think differently. Next is you need motivation and you need clarity of thought. Clarity of thought is very important. You might be an undergraduate first year student, but you should know, like, what will I as a person be in next 5 years? You should have clarity of thought, and please keep reading for that. Keep reading, and it helps. Keep reading. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisha. And thank you indeed. It's a wonderful session and could give a good insight. Actually, the motto of the organizing this webinar is almost solved. That means it's beyond my expectation. What I exactly expect, it's beyond my expectation. That went very well. Despite of some technical issues that we have faced, and it's inevitable. We know that because it's not in our hand. If one or two person is sensitized from this webinar, it is very, very fruitful for me, because many nursing leaders, many administrators are on board in this webinar. If they just share all these things to their institutions, their students, and their healthcare agency, the main motto of this thing will be resolved. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anjana ma'am. Thank you, Lisha, for this wonderful session. Before concluding remark, I would like to extend my gratitude to all our guest speaker, Ms. Anjana Menon ma'am, Lisha Shirley Babu, our principal, Dr. Professor Aradhna Michael, Choitra Management, and our overwhelming participants. And I'm very sorry that many of you are not able to go with the complete session. If it is there, we'll just upload all these recordings on a Facebook and a YouTube, and you have the access to all these things. Last but not the least, as the quality matters with the team, and this webinar is successful just because our team effort and our some people who are work tirelessly beyond screen or off screen. That is Ms. Sharanya as assistant professor and Mr. Philemon Johnson, our IT expert. Because of him, both of them, the session is successfully able to conclude it. Thank you. If people have any query, they can ask. I think most of them don't have much query for the same, because yeah.
I was just hearing one message which was put from one of the participants. I don't remember her name. She was asking, how can a nurse become a consultant? It is very clear now, I hope, after my session and Lisha's session, that there is no barriers which is preventing you. It is only your attitude. If you have a challenge, if you have a mindset of coming out, you can be anything that you want to. So just, you have your Google, as she said, as Lisha said, we were in an era where we didn't have anybody. Our lectures were our ultimate. They were the only guiding people for us. But now you are in an era where you have everything in your Google. We say Google Swami is there, everything, anything, answer for you to read it through, try to learn. And I always say that we are 0% in learning. We have lots and lots to learn. So take up the challenge, be open, wide enough to take challenges in your life. And as what Lisha said, get going, don't be in your comfort zone, get going across, and you can fulfill your dreams positively.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your motivating words. And I think that people get motivated from this and they become a good quality person, a good quality healthcare professionals, and they have their own insight because it's the internal motivation that the person is drawing from inside. If they want to do something different, they will do. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Lisha.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, all the participants. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.